Well, welcome everybody. It's always beautiful to be with each and every one of you. And please let me bow deeply before your divinity. Just acknowledging that this Kundalini path can be a wild path, an intense path, a really difficult path. And so I welcome you into this group. Okay, just a couple things before we get into the teaching today. A couple announcements. One, our next big retreat is July 14th through the 19th at the Kripalu Yoga Center. I do hope you can join. And this is like our big retreat of the year, an in-person retreat. And these are incredibly powerful spaces of both healing and awakening. So if you can come, we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you. Secondly, next Friday, June 21st at 10:30 on Zoom, tentatively, we're going to have a community meeting just to speak about growth within the Sangha and what you'd like to see more of. The focus is going to be on social media and social media platforms, maybe exploring different platforms and ways to meet because many of you are wanting more and more connection, and we're trying to find out how to do that in a digital world. Of course, the best way to connect is together in person, and we'll be doing that at Kripalu. But much of the year, we're all over the world, and so it'd be nice to find a way to connect in a more sacred way than just like the infinity scroll on Facebook. And so we're going to be talking about some things. So if you're interested, there'll be details on Facebook. I haven't posted those just yet. Okay, so I think that's all the announcements. I see a couple new faces. So right now I'm going to offer a short teaching the next half hour or so. Then we'll do some sharing, and then we'll do questions in 1 hour from now at the top of the hour. Okay. So I'm going to start today just by acknowledging that this path of Kundalini Awakening, it's the most dramatic spiritual path there is. Now, there could be a little disagreement with people in the psychedelic world, like the psychedelic world tends to have lots of drama and craziness and wildness, but that just tends to be under the influence of the psychedelic. But for those of us on this Kundalini path, we might have some sort of awakening, and we might have a wild experience for the next 6 months, 6 years. I've met with some people who, they really struggled with the energy and intensity for a couple decades. That's a more extreme example. But, let's smile a little bit, just acknowledging like this path is hard. And that's why many of us gravitate towards this group and getting some weekly support, because it can be quite intense and overwhelming. And in order to work with a path that is so wild, that has so much Shakti in it, we as yogis have to be able to maintain a basic level of sanity. Just a real basic level of sanity. I'm going to tell you all just like a funny, bizarre story just to kind of see if we can smile a little bit here. But I had an old friend, and a friend from like back in the 90s. We both moved to this little town back in 93 or 94. And, Durango at that time was kind of like a little hippie town, little hippie mountain town. I was a hippie. He was a hippie. We all had dreadlocks, and, we were just like wild, dirty hippies walking around following the Grateful Dead and listening to Rasta music. Well, at some point, my friend, who was just, this kid from the suburbs of Chicago, at some point his mother called him, after he'd been in Durango for a year or so. He was probably using a little bit too much of the green substance and, chanting, about Rastafari and all this kind of wildness. But at one point, his mother called him and said, "Hey, I need you to come home." like I'm sick and I might have to have this surgery, and I might, there's a chance that I might die. And he's like, oh boy. So he got it on the next plane and he came home. And when he got to his house to see his parents and, the other family members, and again, like he's from like the upper middle class suburbs of Chicago. No one had ever seen dreadlocks like back then, like in his part of the world. It was still like a new thing. And, they just thought their son went off the deep end. And so they had this intervention, and basically they restrained him. They took him to a mental hospital. And then while he's being checked into the mental hospital, um, the girl who was like the receptionist there was his like sophomore year homecoming date. It's just like checking him in. And he starts to resist. And he's like, you all are crazy. You live in Babylon. He's like saying all these Rasta words and stuff, and, just like running his mouth in the most wild way. And he has dreadlocks at this time down to his butt. I kept cutting my dreadlocks because they just got so filthy. And, mine would make it to the middle of the back, and then I'd cut mine off. But anyways, I don't want to get too confused here. So he starts resisting and fighting and say, and then he runs. And then the guys in the white jackets come and they tackle him, and then they restrain him, and then they highly medicate him. And again, they throw him in the insane asylum for, the mental hospital for, a week or so before they discern that this is just a young man who has wild hair and who's maybe listening to a little bit too much, Israel vibrations or whatever, Rasta music, and probably smoking a little too much pot. The point of the story here is that sometimes with Kundalini, things can get really, really nutty. Things can get really bizarre. Sometimes with us, like our body might start shaking, our body might tremble. We might go into spontaneous kriyas. We might go into, into mudras. Our eyes might roll back in our head. We might start doing, wild things like doing long fasts. Like, I've had a lot of friends who will do like a 10-day fast, and, like things can get nutty if you do a 10-day fast. I've had friends who on the path who they sat in meditation and they didn't get up for like a week, and it's just like, and, sometimes if we mix in psychedelics or substances, if we are going back and forth to the psychiatric doctor and just trying meds and meditating intensely and doing lots of yoga, and all this trauma stuff is coming up, again, things can get kind of weird. They get wild. Some of us, we might be visited by entities, or let's have some fun, or aliens, or just like things might come into our field that are otherworldly. And for some of us, we just have lots and lots of energy, and it's overwhelming. And while all of this is happening, all this, what the Buddha called psychological phenomena, or psychic phenomena, or otherworldly phenomena, or spiritual phenomena. It's important for us as human beings to maintain a very basic level of sanity, a basic level of sanity, a basic, what the Buddhists call mindful awareness, like just a sense of mindfulness, a sense of awareness that yes, there is lots of energy flowing through my body. And yes, it is overwhelming. And yes, it is quite intense. And yes, it is downright weird and bizarre. But no, I am not crazy. I am not insane. I am not going crazy. I will not let myself go crazy. I am waking up. I am waking up. And so it's so important just to have just this basic knowledge that I am waking up. And when I look out at many of you, I see all these goddesses. I'm a goddess. I'm waking up. I'm a Buddha. I'm waking up. But some of us, we crack under the pressure. And, it's human to crack. It's human to crack. It's human to fall on your knees, like Jesus did in the Garden of Gethsemane and say, Lord, this is too much. This is way too much. I can't handle this. And for some of us, like the path is about cracking. Like the path is about, like spiritual awakening literally is about your ego cracking open and the discovery that there is something much greater here that you are. Whether we call that the soul, or the awakened one, true nature, your divine presence, awake awareness, I don't care what you call it. But we need to be rooted in this basic level of sanity. That as our ego is increasingly more and more pressured, and like when our ego is pressured, there's this thing that happens in our psychological nature. When the ego is pressured, it begins to split. And it might split off into wounded parts of ourselves, sabotaging parts of ourselves, angry parts of ourselves. You know, like I've had parts within me when I was young that would split, and I would curse at God. I would raise my hands, be like, why are you doing this to me? Some people under pressure, their mind splits, and we go into it's like a split, but it's mixed in with some conditioning, like Western world Christian conditioning that God is a judge and you're bad and you're going to hell, or God is punishing you, and this kind of thing. And it's so important, if we see any of the splitting going on in our psyche, just to say no, like, no, I'm not crazy. No, God is not punishing me. No, for some of us, like the feeling is a lot of pain. And then we make an assumption. We think, if there's pain in my body, that means I'm dying. And some people have said to me often, I'm dying, I'm dying, I'm dying, I'm dying. And we're not dying. We're waking up. We're waking up. We're waking up to something much, much greater. We're waking up to something new and fresh. We're waking up to a radically different world. In the world that your egoic identity is presenting to you. And so on this path, it is so important to have this basic level of sanity, just a basic level of sanity, which one knows who you are and what your life is about. I'm a spiritual person. I'm on the path of awakening. Ever since I was a kid, I knew this. I'm a spiritual being. I'm on the path of awakening. And I also knew no, who I am not. I am not my mind, and I'm not my emotions. That's not what I am. Now, with most human beings, like we live in an egoic world, the world of collective consciousness. In the world of the collective consciousness, People think they are their thoughts. People think they are their egos. People think they are their jobs. People think they are their feelings. But if we think we are our feelings, if we identify with our feelings when we are on this wild, I'll even say insane path of awakening, Kundalini awakening, then we're going to be identifying with insanity. And that insanity will make us kind of or really nutty. It'll make us kind of or really nutty. And we've all been there before, where there's just so much pressure, so much Shakti is flowing through you. And maybe there's energy that's stuck in your heart or your belly. And, if you start Googling on the internet your symptoms, you could think, I have a pancreatic cancer. Or if you Google in a different direction, there is an entity that's in my body and it's eating me alive. It's like, and so again, we have to have a basic level of sanity and just know that this path that we are on, whether we chose to be on it or not, we are on a path of awakening. And this path of awakening will bring up old wounds, traumas, pressures, will bring up every aspect of our body that is closed, that is shut down, that is resistant. And we need to meet this resistance. We need to meet this confusion. We need to meet this very painful experience of pressure and intensity. Firstly, with sanity. It's a basic sanity. A basic knowing that I'm on the path. And the path will bring up darkness within me. It'll bring up trauma within me. It'll bring up confusion within me. And then, of course, the second thing we need is we need love. We need to love the things that are arising. We need to create some space for them to unravel and to empty out. And the third thing we need is strength, the strength to maintain a sanity, to be open and loving, and to continue to love and to help whatever is stuck, to release, to have faith and trust in this process for as long as it takes. And so I'm going to invite us all just to close down our eyes, to take some deep breaths, and just feeling throughout our body. Feeling throughout our body, just noticing if there's any tension or any pressure, and inviting there to be a quiet sense of peace and spaciousness and softening. And there's this very beautiful thing that happens to our mind. The more we as yogis relax our body, the more we come into peace and breathe deeply and fully. What we find is that pressure, whatever it is, whether it's pressure from Kundalini, pressure from trauma, interacting with Kundalini, pressure from fear or big emotions, the more we relax our body, the more clear our thoughts become. And with this clarity, I invite you just to look around inside and just see what's here. What's here that's struggling and could use some loving presence. What's here? Within me that is tight or tense? What's here? I could use some compassionate letting go. And so, yes, we're breathing in and breathing out. Softening and trusting. Softening and smiling at this divine paradox, this human paradox, this paradox of being a soul, being spirit, being this etheric presence in an animal body that has wants and needs and desires and a nervous system that fights and runs and freezes, that gets overwhelmed by energy. And again, can we smile? Can we soften? Can we reconnect with this basic truth that we are yogis, that we are divine beings, and we've incarnated into animal bodies. And just acknowledging because of this very paradoxical experience, our path is going to be hard. It's going to be messy. It's going to be confusing. It's going to be muddy. We are spirit that has incarnated into the mud, into the earth. And fully validate, fully acknowledging that that's hard, that that's messy, that it's bizarre, that it's wild, but consciously choosing deep in your heart, deep in your hara, your lower abdomen, your power center, committing to this basic truth that you are that which is awake, that which is aware. Committing to the acknowledgement that you are a divine being, not a mental being, not an emotional being, not an insane being, that you are a divine being, that you are a yogi, you are a spiritual warrior. And because we are a spiritual warrior, we choose to identify with spirit first, with the truth first. And while in a compassionate way, we may validate our human emotions in a true way, in an awake way, we acknowledge we are not our emotions. And we are not our thoughts. Thoughts are little forms of energy that are conditioned by our family, our education, the outer world. Feelings arise out of our nervous system and mix with our conditioning of our mind. But what you are is beyond this. For you can witness this, you can observe this. And this path of Kundalini awakening is wanting to push you beyond being a divided, egoic human being. This movement of Kundalini Shakti is here to push you, to open you into the recognition that you are all of life. Not separate from life, not even witnessing life, but the recognition that you are all of life. And so breathing, feeling, softening, opening, trusting. We can fully let go. Any and all identification with phenomena, passing thoughts, passing emotions. You can even let go beyond the one who witnesses this. So for some of you, if you just make it to the witness, that's a huge step. For others, we let go beyond the witness and we become life itself. Becoming the totality itself. And so this deeper and the third tier awakening realization occurs when we stop resisting everything. And we choose to be that which is vast, that which is spacious, that which is deep, that which is wide, that which is all, and that which is no thing. So breathing, feeling, softening. Surrendering. Being the light. Being the light. And so, we take a couple more deep, full breaths, gently opening our eyes. Again, I welcome you into this room. I welcome you into the space of basic sanity. A sanity that is beyond the splits, the division of the mind, that is beyond the coming and going of phenomena. It's beyond emotion and trauma and all that type of thing. of course, has room for it all, allows for it all, doesn't resist it, doesn't fight it. And what you find as we step into this basic sanity, many things will gently resolve themselves if we simply rest in this basic sanity. And other things, that need that are a little bit more persistent, sometimes they need some work, some help, some more focused surgical support. And so